Hi friends. So, we've been busy. As you can see here, when I first reviewed the Daggerheart manual, I did not notice it had bookmarks, which is great, because if you look, we are currently at page 129. I've been kind of digging through it today and looking. And the first video I want to make kind of goes over a lot of the beta changes, things that are different between the beta and the new version, the fully released version. So I think the first thing and easiest thing to do is go through the core mechanics, some of the most important stuff, and then in following videos I'll break down by individual classes, so you know based on individual classes, and then we'll move into just random other changes that I've kind of stumbled across while reading through the manual. Starting with the most iconic, the fear and the hope system. So not a whole lot of changes here, thankfully. I think it was pretty much well established and kind of well figured out. The old system, you'd gain hope when you roll, you'd gain fear when fear was rolled, or you would cause the player to like get a stress or do some other action. Now it's pretty much just you gain hope when hope's rolled, you gain fear when fear's rolled, and that's just how it goes. GM's always going to gain fear whenever fear's rolled now. Moving on to combat, a lot of people were like, what's happening to the action tracker? Are we keeping the action tracker? Are we getting something new? We're getting something more defined and more rigid, a little bit more, crunchy, or are we getting just totally freeform? Turns out we're going totally freeform. They have a spotlight system. It's kind of like the new combat mantra, if you will, effectively meaning it just combat flows with whoever is doing the most interesting or the most active thing at that current time. That's who gets the spotlight. That's who's going. I've already been kind of incorporating this somewhat into the games that I'm running, where if I have the tank bust through the door and make a proclamation, either the guards or the enemies on the other side are going to be the first one to react, or he's the first one to react. That kind of narratively made sense to me always, because he's the first one in the door, and if he has low initiative, he would be like the last person to act. So like if you're imagining the scene, like he bursts in, hey, we finally found you, bandits, and then like he just stands there until everybody else does their thing, and then he's like, okay, now I go. It didn't really make sense to me, so I can see why the spotlight made its way into the game. They have an optional like spotlight tracker where essentially they recommend everybody get 3 tokens, and whenever you take an action, you just toss one of your tokens into the center, and then it kind of moves around the table until everybody has expended all of their tokens, and then at which point then the whole table can refill on tokens. If you want like a crunchier system, that kind of works. As a DM, I kind of just manually do that. If I see one player taking more than like 1 or 2 actions, I'll kind of like, okay, well before you do that, let's see what everybody else is doing, and I'll kind of just direct towards other people. Anyway, deal your games how you want to do your games. Let's get back to the changes. There is a whole new section on battling adversaries that I saw just kind of like snuck into one of the pages here, and I think it's worth talking about. Basically, it's like GM rules for your adversaries, and like how they interact with the spotlight. Similar to last time, the spotlight will pretty much stay with players until somebody fails an action roll, rolls with fear, or the GM spends a fear to kind of interrupt the player's turn, and at which point the GM can then spend any number of fear to activate any number of adversaries. Spotlighted adversaries can pretty much do the same thing that they were able to do beforehand. You can either move within close range, make a standard attack. They can move within close range to use an adversary action. You can clear a condition. This is actually a buff, because previously you typically had to like use a fear to clear conditions, but now you can just use an action to clear a condition. And then you can also sprint within far or very far range on the battlefield. That uses up your whole action as well. So some decent new moves there. Moving on to armor and evasion. Previously in the beta version, everyone had 6 armor slots and variable base evasion, kind of set on your class. This has changed a lot. We'll get to that in a minute. Firstly, evasion is still based on your class. TLDR armor got nuked. So we'll get there in just a second. First, we'll go jumping ahead to HP and damage thresholds. Damage thresholds were based on classes and used to increase when you leveled up, and everybody's HP started at 6. Now classes have the classes actually themselves have new HP values, so some are lower, some are higher, and damage thresholds have also changed. You will see those below as well. Moving forward to stress, the old way the stress kind of worked is players would take on stress when they completed an action. Being full stress made you vulnerable, and then taking on more stress while taking any more stress while you're at maximum would cost you an HP. That's still the same. However, the only real change came in like how you could utilize stress in different situations. Typically, the players had the agency to use stress to kind of get themselves through a complicated situation, or the GM would like let them mark a stress to kind of avoid a complicated situation like a dialogue or something tough. Now the agency is kind of shifted over to the GM in that regard, where the verbiage kind of says like now the GM can offer a stress in exchange for succeeding in action, maybe to help kind of move the plot along, or to kind of, if people didn't even know that that was a thing, and maybe now GMs know it's a thing. Okay. Elephant in the room, let's talk about armor and damage thresholds. Primarily, I guess the first thing is armor has changed massively, and not only armor has changed massively, but equipment has changed massively. So if I scroll down here a little bit, your damage thresholds and your armor values are now actually tied to the equipment, the armor that you're physically wearing. Hi friends, me from the future here, just making a quick edit to the video and the recording to kind of clarify how armor works. So damage thresholds and base armor score are still going to be tied to whatever armor you have equipped at the time. Base damage thresholds will be calculated by whatever armor plus your level, and then the number of armor slots you have is actually equal to the base armor score of that armor. So for Gambison, as an example, it's got a base armor score of 3. That means you have 3 available armor slots. Now, in the beta version, 3 used to stand for how much damage you could mitigate by marking an armor slot. That's no longer the case. They've gotten rid of that and kind of removed the math and having to do any math from taking damage and kind of figuring out how heavy the hit is. Now, if you mark an armor slot, you can only mark 1 whenever you take damage, and that will reduce the severity. It doesn't really matter, how big the hit is or what the, how much the armor is. If it's over your severity, if it's over that threshold, you mark the armor, it lowers it. So that's kind of like a new and improved system. I just wanted to give a little bit of clarity and kind of how it works in combat. All right, back to the old me. As far as other kind of HP and stress things when you're leveling up, one of the big notes here is with the change to like armor and damage thresholds. When you're leveling up, armor slot, the upgrade of the armor slot, that's gone. Damage threshold upgrades, those are both gone. In their place, you can now upgrade stress or HP an additional time. Previously it was just once per tier, per level up, but now you can hit those twice per tier. And then thresholds, they are tied to your armor, but now passively increase with character level. So a minor, severe, or major, severe, 7-11. Level 1 would be 8-12. They plus up by 1, and then when you go to level 2, add 1, so on and so forth. They kind of roll up the bars. Any new armor that you put on, they'll just have the armor's base thresholds plus your character level. So kind of you get a little bit passively, but I think overall it's going to be way more determined on what armor your character's wearing, and I think the squishy characters and cloth characters are going to be way squishier. So a little nervous. We'll see how the balancing works out. I'm sure some damage has been adjusted to kind of compensate for that, but we'll find that out later. Other notable changes as far as equipment goes, weapons now cost stress to swap. So if they're in your inventory, previously you could kind of swap everything out. Now it's just a stress if you're in a combat or like difficult situation. Unarmored, now it gives you 0 armor score, and your thresholds are based on your level. So major equals whatever level you are. Your severe is now double your level, and then armor, it didn't like say this in the beta versions, and it's kind of cool they threw this in, but armor can now be reflavored to fit a character's personality or kind of their class. The example they used in the guide was basically a wizard could be using plate armor, but it didn't have to be plate armor. It could just be like a robe, but he's fortifying it with magic and enchantments to kind of make it stronger, and narratively the penalties that would apply to that is just due to like the focus that he has to exert to kind of maintain that level of security, and he would have, you know, all the armor value and the armor slots along with it. So those are kind of like the initial core mechanical differences that I've kind of picked out. If it's not listed here, it's so far I haven't found it to be any different. Combat, kind of like I said, they kind of just let you run wild with it. Fear and hope isn't really changed much. The big, I think, major changes come within like the character's HP and damage thresholds, and a little bit with stress, but that's not too much different. And then leveling up. So keep subscribed and keep tuned in. I'm gonna basically be rolling through. I've already got, I mean, you can see kind of like as a little bit of a spoiler here, I'm working on, you know, Druid and Bard I've got here too, you know, with all of their stuff. So I've got more the videos coming down the line, basically going over all the different classes, and I'll break down, you know, what's changed in those classes, if anything's changed or what's happened with them. So yeah, appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for tuning in. Give it a like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take it easy.